Hi, well,
And I
you
said,
okay?
how
That's
you
a bit
going,
dark.
mate? Good to see. Gee, I've seen you a bit this week. How you going?
Oh, good. There, that's better.
Are you feeling optimistic and buoyant and fabulous?
Well, I'm getting there, getting
Now,
there.
mate, I was going to ask you, so obviously the honours is due. What are we in now? The end of July. So when's your honours due, Doug?
I think the last lecture is the 9th of October.
Right. And when's the dissertation due, Doug?
I handed that up in May.
Isn't that odd?
Yeah, because I started last year and I went part-time.
Um,
So
oh,
I'm waiting. I should get the result back end of the month, hopefully.
well, that is fantastic, Doug. Well, you are legendary. But it's weird that the coursework keeps going in honours till the end, isn't it? Absolutely
Yeah, yeah.
bizarre.
So I was there yesterday and I told the class that I'd submitted and then they said, well, why are you here? And so, well, I've got one more work to do. So,
Oh, mate, fantastic. Well, we're so excited. You did brilliantly, I thought, this week at the training. You were legendary.
oh, cool. Thanks.
Good on you. So look, the gang's in. Queen Gay's in. That's fantastic. The Kyles is in. Oh, Kyles, that's a nice blouse, that. That's very attractive. See, you look good in the mauve.
Yeah,
That's
it's not a colour I've really worn until the last 12 months. Mauve and pink, but seems
you,
to go.
you lavender lady. That's fantastic. Oh, darling, and we're going to talk all about Coles because I haven't had updates from Coles in a while, so I'm glad Coles is here. Mary's here and trying to freak us all out. Ah. How you going, Mary?
Good, just a little camera trouble.
That's all right. You're just testing that we're all awake and alive. So how are you going, Queen Mary?
Yeah, it's going good. I'm working towards my milestone 2 now, and I'm writing the chapter that's in my thesis that's going to be part of that, and I find it very interesting and fascinating to research.
And reasonably straightforward. Any blockages or problems or challenges, Queen Mary?
Well, one challenge is I have been Googling and I can't find, how do you write history from raw archives? Like, I haven't found much on that at the moment. I'm looking. So I keep Googling a bit more, but because you don't want to just paraphrase what's in the archives, and you need to have a look at it intelligently look at patterns and tell a good story. So
Look, mate, you do, and you saw my sort of smile when I did a history degree when dinosaurs roamed the earth. We spent a lot of time working with the primary archives, so
yeah,
managing primary sources. Secondary sources were really problematic, right? So I was like, oh, why are you using secondary sources? Use primary, right? So it's a real snobbishness. But the idea, and I wonder if that's linked, Mary, with sort of digitization and the proliferation of information, that we've actually lost that gift and that ability to render the primary source precious.
Oh yes. Well, look, what I'm doing has not really been analysed or written about, so it feels like new territory.
Oh, that is brilliant, my darling.
So
Absolutely fantastic. Well, look, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to ponder that through the gig as well today. So look, our gang's all in. We've said hello to the legendary Doug, hello to the Gay, hello to the legendary Kylie in the move. Irina's in. Hello, my darling. It's lovely to see you. We're going to touch base with you. Queen Maeve's in. We can't start anything without Maeve, you legendary human. And look, Kate. Kate is, we got so much to talk about with Kate this week. I mean, basically, Kate is transforming her life and my life, and that nod's frightening too, isn't it, Kate? So we're going to talk about Kate and the transformation, and she can help me gain confidence as well. So it's lovely. Who knew, Kate? But we're thrilled you're here. Good evening, Paul. Oh, I just get that. Thanks, mate. And you're.
Oh, yeah.
And your wife is legendary, can I say? Not in a sort of digital way, but she's a lovely human. So can you give her my love? And wow.
Of course I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Legendary person. And look, the star of the show, and Victor's here. How are you, darling one?
I think I'm much better this week, Tara.
Well, you've rendered
than I
yourself
was last week.
you've rendered yourself unbelievably famous through the higher degree program at CTU, can I say? People and everyone's going, oh, she like you're famous. Like every second email I got this week is, oh, Anvita's staunch, isn't she? She good, isn't she? She good.
Oh my God.
So it's like, you are so famous, so I'm just going to put on a T-shirt, friend of Anvita, right? So my life is. And
I don't know who's talking about me, but okay, thank you.
Oh, look, just about everybody. So, you know, it's Darwin, mate. But Avita, darling, I just said to Doug how legendary he was at that training. You were superb as well, and so was Adrian. Just amazing. So, good morning, Adrian. Oh.
Morning.
And for our crew in Darwin, who is in Darwin, by the way? Who is in Darwin and joining us? I imagine Queen Kathy is. But
I am, but I can't seem to get my picture to happen.
Don't even worry. We've got your fabulousness. Keep with us, Kathy. But for our friends in Darwin, of course, which includes me at the moment, it's our show day. So so that's why I'm at home. So don't think, gee, her office has changed. No, I'm actually in the accommodation here. Good on you. Liam is here in the middle of the night. So happy show day to everybody in Darwin. And can I say, you know, it's show day in Darwin because it's 9:03 and the barbecues have already started. I have never smelled this much medium rare steak at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Okay, so this is a protein fueled city. So for everyone in Darwin, we wish you well and thank you for joining us on your day off, which is tremendous. Oh, and Kathy, we've got Kathy's picture, so that's great, Kath. So
Another picture.
Oh, we're thrilled to see you. So look, colleagues, we'll start as we always start. We've got the Kate conversation to have about her reorganising her life and reorganising all of our lives as well in terms of income streams and the future. And she's just so inspirational. We'll just go with Kate. But colleagues, any questions? Because this is our digital office hour, so welcome to it. Now, are there any questions that we need to start the party with this week? Because I want to make sure we always do questions first. Oh, there's silence. That's unusual. Oh, Maeve's in. Good on you, Maeve. Good morning, Maeve.
Good morning. This is not a question, so I apologise for that. It is something, though, I've been thinking about for the last couple of days.
Oh, darling.
And I did think it could be the thing that goes last, but I also thought it could be the thing that went first. So, yes, on a good day. So I just wanted to give a nod, if you like, to the passing of Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, God.
I know it's a hard place to start, but
Yeah, no, Maeve, I'm absolutely, I was running around like, to quote my father, a blue-ass fly yesterday, because I'm running about 2 different jobs at once. I'm the acting DVC as well. So I was moving between meetings. All of a sudden I saw it. And of course, she's only a couple of years older than me. And I was thinking about why it impacted me so deeply and still is. And, you know, people that we've admired through our lives die, you know, and that's the nature of popular culture and fandom. But this is a little bit different because I think she performed for all of us the tragedy and the despair of life, right? So life was not kind to her. And she, you know, has been treated disgracefully through her life by multiple organisations and institutions and people in power, including the Roman Catholic Church. And the idea that she has left us in that despair, you know, so she had that moment of despair and she couldn't get in it or through it, has been just absolutely debilitating and devastating for me. And I'm sure for all of us. And, you know, popular cultural figures die. You know, Prince, I was devastated when Prince died, you know, and again, he was heavily big farmered up when he died as well and died on his own. So this is, you know, it's a reminder, Maeve, to just be gentle and to care for people. But I also think, Maeve, it's an acknowledgement that life is just a bit of a mongrel at the moment. And our systems and our structures are not serving the majority of the population, and that suffering is manifesting in the Cason Deaton's deaths of despair. And we've seen it with Sinead as well. So with the wonderful conversation I had with Eunice this morning, our Kate's dear friend Eunice, I might end up doing an outrider on Sinead because there's that wonderful scholarly monograph about her published this year, ironically. And so I think that there's a lesson there for us all, and we're all processing the tragedy of this. we need it to be a warning, and we need it to be a recognition of collective suffering and neglect of our institutions.
And what I hear you, and I think that's extremely well said. If you don't mind my saying that, but what I feel, I'm feeling strongly about this, and I'm feeling there's a relationship to the theory of claustropolitanism.
There is.
So I think that's one thing that I'm noting, and I think I want to speak here to two things. Firstly, I think that the planet is suffering. You know, I think I heard a thing about the Gulf Stream would be gone in 2 years. Like, I don't want that to be possible or true, but I thought I heard the ABC tell me that the Gulf Stream would be gone. Like, maybe it was just a Facebook post. You know, I don't know, but it was terrifying. Yeah. And I think the whole planet is suffering very, very deeply. And I know it has the potential to drag down our mood, but I think it does the reverse. I think, what I want to salute in Sinead O'Connor was her courage.
Oh, my Lord.
And I think that courage, courage means bravery of the heart. It's liqueur, it's the heart. And I'm curling it back to you, Tara, and I'm saying I want to thank you for your courage, because without your courage, I don't mean to embarrass you, I promise you. No, I don't. Without your courage, all of us who have suffered academically, which is your niche, your sphere.
What I do suffering. Thanks, Maeve. I'll put that on a T-shirt too, with I'm a friend of Anvita, I do suffering. Thank you, Maeve.
No, you befriend us in our suffering, which is empathic. And you are a leader in showing empathy to real people in a real way. And I want to acknowledge Sinead O'Connor for unbelievable courage. I've read things about her life. I'm not going to speak them because I don't know which things are true. And I do think for me, we live still in the age of facts. I know we don't, but I believe we can.
Absolutely.
So I think what we do here in digital office hours sometimes is absolutely mind-blowingly potent for people out there we don't know, who maybe aren't telling us they're watching, and who are experiencing their ranges of suffering. I just want to speak to that today.
You're wonderful, Maeve, and it does. I always hope, and Kylie and I talk about this a lot. People don't talk enough about sort of company and keeping people company. And, in a doctoral program, it's very, very isolating, but like living a life at the moment is incredibly isolating, right? So just the gentleness of acknowledging a person, speaking their name, sitting with them. I mean, we can't solve all problems. Irina worries me on a sort of daily basis, to be honest with you, Irina, my darling. You're very precious to us. And I always feel like we can't necessarily do something to solve problems, but maybe we can. But frequently just walking with somebody in their troubles or in their suffering or in their problem, the company, I think, is important.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh, you're amazing. And Adrian, we found that with the training this week, and we'll go straight to Doug in a sec, but Adrian, even in that training, when we're talking through very difficult issues and topics, people sort of gain something from walking through those challenges together, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the preliminary kind of audios that you sent out before that, I think there was it gave a lot of people relief. It certainly gave me a lot of relief in terms of how transparent you were. And I applaud what Maeve's saying, I guess, in saying that you're very approachable and you're very transparent. And that's something that is, it's needed.
Oh, Adrian, you're very kind. I don't think I do all that, but I suppose what has happened, Adrian, is I've performed reasonably visibly the nightmare that is international higher education. And I wish it hadn't been thus, but I haven't sort of crawled away or, topped myself or anything. I've kept walking forward, and I hope I've always narrativized or storied the challenges that have occurred, whether it be dreadful bullying or you arrive and appalling things occur. You know, Paul and Liam, you know, we've shared a lot of the British system and what it is doing to humans. And it's important, I think, for Australians to understand what's happening in the UK. We will be there soon. We've got an intense ruthlessness now, so we need to acknowledge our brothers and sisters and non-binary identifying crew in the UK and be empathic, but also learn from the suffering of others. So Adrian, my point is always, I want you all to hear what is happening, so when it happens to you, you recognize it faster than I did, and you have a pathway or a trajectory out of it.
Yeah, no, and it certainly came through. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was so inspired by the CDU crew. They were excellent. I thought it was the first time you all had to put up with me in training, and it was a very inspiring session for me. Amazing. But the Dougster was there, so Doug, talk to me, mate.
A couple of things. First, on SBS On Demand, for those of us in Australia and possibly New Zealand, there's a doco on Sinead called Does Compares.
It's a great doco too.
Is it?
Was that on Netflix as well, Paul and Liam? Can you remember? It was. I saw it actually when I was in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It might have been a Netflix one, but it is astonishing, and that's why
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, mate, you must, and that's why
Yeah.
I saw it about 3 or 4 months ago in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I was deeply moved by it, and I was worried, I think, and so therefore, you know, I reconnected. I listened to a new albums and so forth, and it was great, really enjoying it. And then, of course, I think that's what shocked me so much yesterday. I think.
Yeah, because I downloaded her discography. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, I'll be listening to bits of that, and she's quite a powerful woman.
Yes, Liam, I think you're right. By the way, it's an RTE. I think it is. It was very, very strong, and it used very similar techniques actually to what they did with the Wham documentary recently with Ridgely and George Michael, just using the voice. And there's something. I mean, again, Paul, this links in with some of the work we're doing, sort of having the archival footage. So back to Mary, having the original archival footage, and then these older voices, including the voice of people that have died, narrativizing their past. So there's this disconnection between the current voice and the older footage, and there's something to say about mortality and memory there, I think, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good trip to enable kind of that down that memory lane and introducing the modern media with the older media is a very clever modality for journalism, but it certainly works. It's a really really good.
It's really powerful.
I haven't seen it yet either.
Oh, look, Paul, you will enjoy, and of course, it just adds a whole bit of juice and nightmare from what happened yesterday. And of course, Liam, as Liam's rightly said, she was on, and Liam talked to us about that. She was on a faith journey, so she spent a lot of her life moving back to and moving away from the Catholic Church, and of course, converted to Islam in, was it 2018 or was it before then, Liam? All sound, mate.
Yeah, it's 2018. There's a beautiful video of her singing the Shahada on YouTube, and it was really, really moving. But the lack of imagery of her in the last few years, it's like the British press have gone back to like the 90s, when she was charting, etc.
Yes, and there's a thing about aging women, and I think that's about us, Liam, rather than about the aging icons of our career. Because there's always that shock, when you saw Andrew Ridgely, that was the great example. Like, I loved Andrew Ridgely, I thought he was gorgeous, and you used to go, "Oh, Andrew," and you go, "What's happened, Andrew?" And you go, "Well, what's happened is 30 years is what's happened." And then you sort of look at yourself and go, yeah, well, 30 years have happened, haven't they? So it's the confrontation with one's own mortality, I think, that's part of it. But as Liam said, it's important to look at the entirety of the career. And the last 2 years with the movement to Islam and return to a different faith, I think, is very, very interesting, and that should be validated and thought through, I think, for all of us. So astonishing, really. Astonishing. Oh, good on you, mate. Carolyn, how are you? Good morning, Carolyn.
Hi, everybody. Feeling somewhat fragile today, actually. I stupidly, I think, asked a friend to look at a chapter. He comes from a different discipline. And I accept, you know, what he said is his framework for seeing things and within his science. But it's left me nonetheless somewhat disrupted.
Yes.
And I just noticed Kathy's comment in the chat box about poets. And I'm literally writing to myself here, you know, that even though I see his comments as fair, you know, that's, of course, go for it. That's how you're framing things. That's your reality perspective and so forth. I thought to myself, I'm very much attached to the metaphysics and the poetry of human experience.
Yes.
And, but I'm questioning my right to even talk from that sort of position when you've got this increasingly mechanized and reductionist approach and within education. I'm talking about that, you know, and I'm saying, well, actually, hang on a minute. Let's step back and retain this perspective of the complexity of human experience as not pinnable in every degree. And I sort of feel like I got the right to say that, but at the same time, I guess today I'm doubting it a little bit, which is a pretty crummy feeling.
So Carolyn, my darling, don't, please don't. The first thing is, it's very hard to do this in life, let alone when one's doing research. Stay centered. Stay centered, have the core of who you are and what your research is and what it's doing, and that's not negotiable.
Yeah, it's my lane. I acknowledge it's my lane, but I'm just thrown. But I'll get over it. I have to get over it.
What I would say is, and again, we've all had these sort of shock and firstly, you know, whenever we have commentary about our work, it's very important that colleagues are kind with that. So that you can be robust in one's commentary, but you can also be kind and compassionate with it too. So I think that's something for all of us post Carolyn's conversation there to really bring forward in our lives and acknowledge that. So Carolyn, you're very courageous for saying that, and we need to approach all these matters with kindness. And also, Carolyn, at a certain point in life, and we started with Maeve's conversation about courage, if we can validate the commentary of others, use components of it when it's useful, and that's great and that's powerful, but also there's something very powerful again by saying, okay, well, these people are critical of it. Why are they critical of it? Put that discursive critique in the introduction and the conclusion, but actually stand up and stand for something. And in the thesis, you know, I often get my students to visualize sort of a golden thread above their head, and they pull themselves up to their full height, right? Yeah. And that's what I want for you. So if you can visualize that golden thread through your beautiful hair and just pull yourself up and value who you are and value the perspective. And you know what? There's going to be people that don't like it, that don't like you, and like, and do you realize the courage of those critiques occurring, but you keep walking with that debate, you keep walking with that argument. So it's healing yourself, but also recognizing you've got courage and you've managed those critiques and you've kept walking.
Thanks, Tara.
Very strong. Maeve, were you straight in, darling? Talk to us.
Yes, if I may. Carolyn, I'm feeling a bit sad about that, obviously, the day.
Yeah.
And I would just say to you a lesson that you don't need to be told, but don't do that again. You know, like, you know, you and the world out there, that's one where you go, oh, perhaps that was a mistake. Sure, park it somewhere so that, you know, you will over the weekend work on it a lot, process it, you know, I've had, not through Tara, but I've had other positions, some very tough feedback where I was essentially asked to leave. So firstly, you're not alone in receiving feedback, but it does express to me very, very strongly that people don't necessarily get your work. And I haven't been examined, but when you go to be examined, it's going to hopefully be sent to people who might get your work.
Yes.
So what you've heard, sorry, Tara.
No, I was just going to say, Darren, just as a footnote, I'm your research assistant. The language we use is in affinity with your research. That's the language we use as an examiner.
Yeah. And I'll just stay plain and basic. We're talking about get your work. So, you know, you'll go deep, possibly breathe, go through it. It's a deep process. It's actually like the negative feedback that I got was really helpful to me now. It didn't feel helpful then. So it's a marathon, the PhD, and this will be just one bump.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd say, and I'm going to go straight, if I was going to go straight to Kylie anyway, about interdisciplinarity and post-disciplinarity, but I think colleagues in our lives, because life is so tough at the moment, when we get feedback or we have the word feedback, I think in our heads we insert the word failure. So we don't say in it, so it's feedback, but we don't hear feedback, we hear failure. And to be that courageous human and stand up and have our golden thread pulling us up to our ceiling, if we can make sure that feedback is feedback, it is not failure, and just reorganize our cognitive framework there. Now, Kyles, I was going to go straight to you because obviously if you're working interdisciplinary, post-disciplinary, and a random, I'm sure a very nice random, but when a random comes in and goes, what the hell is this? Right? So Kyles, talk to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much my whole life. I'm always a random, having gone from science to business to project management to engineering to now at university. I am continually at the random. So it still hurts when you get this feedback from someone that you go, that isn't an affinity with my research or the way I want my life. But the thing I hate, and I used to have a boss who used to say it all the time, is like, you've got to look at this feedback as a gift. And I'm like, some of it's a gift. Sometimes I just want to shove it right up where sun don't shine. So yeah, you just, and I think my supervisor, when I put my first paper up and I got the feedback from the reviewers, and the first one was fine, second comments were, it hurt. And I remember she said to me, sit in the hurt. It's okay to feel that. When you've got the gumption over a little bit of time to go, no, I don't agree with that. I agree with that, and include that. But if you don't agree with it, push it away, say why you don't include it, but it doesn't have to be an end of what you are or what your research is. So I hope that helps.
Mate, that's really powerful. Sitting in the hurt is a really strong sentence. I'm going to be thinking about that. My fear always, though, is if one is vulnerable, that if you're sitting in the hurt, where do you get the fuel to be able to stand up and walk out of the hurt?
Yeah.
That's the fear.
I think your analogy with that string, though, works in really well with that. Sitting in the hurt and then getting to that point of pulling yourself back out. I like that too.
Oh, I think that's absolutely amazing. Carolyn, we're with you, darling. Let's just keep you company. Cheers to you, my darling. You're a spectacular human. Amazing. And look, Norfolk Island's in, colleagues. Queen Meghan's in, looking glamorous and magnificent as always. Most of you know how much I love Norfolk Island. I love this place. I would live there. When Jamie and I went for our anniversary, because we always go to islands, when we went to Norfolk Island, we just thought, do we actually go on the plane and come home, or do we just stay here with the chickens? Just the chickens moving around. This is the sort of place where chickens, cattle just move around. And I thought, this is the sort of place I want to live. So Megan, how are you traveling this week, my darling?
I'm traveling okay. Imposter Syndrome visited me earlier in the week, but I kicked him in the ass and told him that he had to go elsewhere. Yes, but very scary. I haven't studied for 30 years, and I'm that I won the scholarship, like very grateful. Thank you, Tara. But it's been a shock to the system. starting all over again and relearning processes. So I've been watching all of your vlogs consistently and consuming them all, and that's been really helpful, talking to other PhD students. So thank you to everybody that I have reached out to. I have really greatly appreciated it. And yeah, I go and I study with the chickens because they're everywhere.
Yeah, no, the chickens are great. Also, I had some of the best barbecue chicken in my life because they're muscular little buggers on Norfolk Island because they have to move about a fair amount. It's a great place. If you ever get a chance to go to Norfolk Island in your life, you need to go there. But Megan, darling, and you don't have to go too hyper personal on it. What was the trigger to move you into the imposter syndrome? Was it happening in your head, or did somebody do something that sort of cascaded you a bit?
No, it was my own insecurities. So and Vita's saying the same thing. It's been visiting her frequently. Yeah, it's a horrible thing, but it is in my own head. And I just replaced positive mind mantras immediately because it's impossible. Cognitively, it's impossible to have a positive and a negative thought at the same time. So every time I have a negative thought, I just stick a positive thought in there. I travel whenever and wherever. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the immediate surrounds, but it's just a positive thought to snap me out of it.
That's fantastic. And you know, Megan, I use the thing with imposter syndrome, and I use it every morning. It's just, you know, I'm fabulous. I'm fabulous. I always say to the students, I'm fabulous. Now, if you say the word fabulous, you have to smile because it's one of those words. So it does provide that centered confidence once more. But Megan Dallin, you can do this. You can, and don't worry about the time. The notion of 30 years and so forth doesn't matter because remember, in that 30 years, you've learned all sorts of other stuff that you would have learned if you'd been like me and stayed in these universities and never really left.
I was really scared that I was going to be the oldest person doing a PhD. I was really scared. So the more I've talked to other PhD students, the more settled I have felt. So thank you to everybody.
Oh, you're amazing. Can I just say, man, because I've been doing some sociological analysis of CDU to work out who everybody is and get it sorted. Did you know 1/3 of our students are over 60?
Wow.
1/3. 1/3, and what a blessing they are. Unbelievable. When we're talking to Megan, can I go to Anvita? So, darling, obviously, when you're in the final stages of a thesis, it is confronting and horrific. What have you had external triggers of that imposter syndrome, or it's what's going on in your head? What's happening?
No, my entire imposter syndrome has been triggered by external influences. And just a couple of like difficult conversations, like, you know, the one about the dissertation thing that we spoke about last week, the change. Because for me, I think what that triggered was the thought that I'd started doing this with a PhD by publication in mind, but then it was suggested that I change to a PhD by dissertation. And the first thought that occurred to me was, well, I guess something is now not going the right way, which is why it is being, you know, suggested or brought up, or we're having conversations about it. And, you know, one thought leads to another. But when you're sitting in that space, and I was definitely feeling very unhinged, every other conversation that should seemingly is not seemingly a difficult conversation became a difficult conversation, or a meeting became like a difficult meeting.
It became a lens.
Yeah, it's just been a cascade of events over the last 2 weeks. It started 2 Fridays ago. I have a meeting after this, so I'm guessing it's going to, you know, come together soon. But it's same thing. Just I've been trying to like look at like my end goal and not let self-doubt creep in, and, you know, hold my ground and say, nope, I know why I'm here, but I cannot doubt my work. And
you've done you've done a fantastic job. And can I say, Anvita darling, this is not about you at all. I'm glad you said it's about external forces. All of this nonsense started when people configured a different mode of thesis called a PhD by publication, right? So that should never have occurred, okay? Because the traditional thesis has publications in it, very straightforward. I mean, you know, Kyles knows engineering. I mean, this has been the story. This is what we do. So the notion that we've given this sort of a special little bit of lip gloss on it, going, this is a thing bespoke in and of itself, that's what's created the issue. So then you're thinking, right, well, I'm not doing that, so this is an enormous change over here. Whereas actually, as I said,
No,
to you, it's, yeah, talk to me.
No, I realize that it's not an enormous change. I think it was just at the juncture that we had the conversation was, you know, your mind goes, well, I'm on this path, but if I'm being, you know, if you're having conversations about doing something else, then I guess something's wrong with where I'm headed. But I'm definitely like feeling better about it, thinking about going down that path rather than trying to pursue the publications and deal with the stresses and the pressures that come along with that.
Spot on.
But
Spot
yeah.
on. Yeah. And,
So-
and darling, the thing is, during a PhD, there are a lot of cul-de-sacs, right? There are, and obviously the dean, your supervisor, we try to say that's a cul-de-sac. Don't go down there. That's a cul-de-sac. So, and hopefully that's what I always do with Adrian too. That's sort of my role. Like, Adrian, that's not going anywhere, brother. That's nah. You can go down, but just be aware it might stop, right? So, so what you're doing is great. What you're doing is important. Where I would have intervened in your situation if I'd known earlier, darling, is if the data set hadn't sort of arrived about 14 months in, I would have gone to plan B. That's what I've been thinking about ever since I met you, to be honest with you, is like...
Yeah, no, so I've definitely like started working, like I've been working on plan B since the end of last year. And it's, you know, it's a slight work in progress because every time, you know, we have a meeting or a discussion about it, there's something more that, you know, comes up saying, oh, we should probably like include that. So it's a work in progress, but it is almost complete. So I'm more, you know, I definitely want to go down that path. So feeling better, feeling more settled.
That's great. You're doing incredibly well. And I know, particularly in the last year of a thesis, it feels, or any research project, to be honest, it feels like you're being knocked in the head and you sort of, and you get back up again. And I know it probably doesn't make it feel less painful, but that is what happens. Because what's actually happening is these challenges and problems are knocking the thesis into shape. Boof, boof. And you just got to sort of hang on to that thread, hang on to the spine of the argument, to the sock, and you'll be great, darling. You will be great. You're doing brilliantly.
I've just been using it as the way that I've now started thinking about it is that this is like, you know, that jolt or the wake up call that you need to actually like look around and see where you're at, I guess. So I've been trying to like look at it from that perspective, which is, this is my wake up call. You know, I'm glad it's happening now and not like a month before submission. So that's like my,
And you're absolutely right. And I mean, Maeve had one of those certainly as well. Maeve, I mean, when you said wake up call, I thought that Maeve, you had that. Just want to speak to that for a second about wake up call, and then we'll go to Kate because Kate's had that too.
Yes, I'm grateful to speak to that because the wake-up call for me was very tough. I was given some very tough feedback. Some of it I reflect, I think is inappropriate, but nonetheless, there were some bits in it that I think Liam was saying in the chat, there was some bits in that where, oh, that hit home. That was things that I was not realizing that I was maybe, I wouldn't say getting wrong, but I wasn't really right either. And also it really forced me to dig deep into the core of my work. And a friend said to me, you know, a very, it wasn't a hippie friend, but it was a very hippie statement, as in, it was not a hippie friend. Stop that. So I'm talking to Tara via the screen here. So she said, well, you know, if the universe wants you to do it, well, you will. So I was too fragile to actually put any faith in that idea. That was way out of how I was actually feeling. And I was personally rocked, Carolyn. I was really very devastated. But what I would say with the more long-term perspective I have now is that the COC, I have in my head that the COC for me was like a MCR, a mid-candidature review, in that I already had worked out so much stuff that, yeah, we've got some new things coming into the PhD, but they're going to merge in really well. And I'm really clear about who I am in the PhD, what I want to say, what I don't. Like all the things that you see me do now, in a way, had a sort of secondary impact from that very heavy negative feedback, where I thought, okay, I'm going to tough this out, and I did tough it out. And everything that I'm doing with Tara is a result of how strong that made me within the PhD.
Wonderful for saying that, Maeve. And Paul, you and I know that, and, you know, it makes me a bit sick and a bit sad, but, you know, in the creative-led methodologies, people are mongrels, right? So it's like, you know, so people are, you know, they're writing a novella, or they've got a soundscape or whatever, and people are just bloody ruthless in these particular modes. And it should be the mode where, you know, there's the most space to stretch and be fabulous and be your own human. And yet people go, well, no, you can't be you. No, you've got to be like me because I'm clearly fabulous, right?
Yeah, we see a lot of the creative-based or creative-led, or however you want to say it, really struggle with biases from supervisors and external examiners pushing their ideals on the creatives and then stifling creativity. And then what does that actually achieve? Well, that achieves is you're producing a load of work in one person's vision. So we're not improving knowledge, we're improving one person's vision of knowledge. So yeah, we see that a lot. And even through our conversations in our university about, similar to, you know, what you've been talking about with the ideas around the porous PhD, and looking to, you know, improve the way it's disseminated within even with the examiners see, it just hits dead ends, especially in creatives. But that's not how it's been done. That's not how we do it. In fact, but that's the point of creativity.
Absolutely. And the point is, the doctorate is not the last thing I ever want. Yes, it's a genre, but the last thing we ever want is a paint by numbers PhD. My Lord, we want, good on you, Kath. We want fabulousness. We love it. We want undulation. Well, sadly, Kathy, particularly in some disciplines, I don't want to call out nursing, but I will. I love our nurses. I love our nurses. Kate, you know this, and that's why I went straight to Kate. Unfortunately, in nursing at the moment, there's a real sense of, okay, we do mixed methods, but we're going to tell you which particular methods you can mix and how you mix them. And it's like, well, and so there's a tightening in particular disciplines, often new disciplines that move newly into a PhD. But that's a tragedy for me. So, you know, and that's why perhaps the creative led is like, no, this is how you make a film. No, this is how you do sonic art. Is it though? You sure? Kate, do you want to, oh, Jamie Quitten's in. Good morning, Jamie. We'll talk to Jamie and then we'll go straight to Kate. And we're going to talk about your moment, Kate, where you had I need to do something differently. And then we're going to talk about how Kate is basically going to earn more than the nation of Australia shortly. Jamie Quinten.
Hi, gang. Hope everyone's doing well. I just wanted to briefly say that what you're talking about when you have a supervisor who is trying to dictate to you that you need to clone them, it's not about you. It's about them.
Ooh. And look, there is a thing in the sciences, isn't there? I mean, I'm sure it exists everywhere, but in the sciences, like the replication, I mean, I call it homology, right? I'll link straight to Liam, but there is that sort of homology, like I am clearly, you know, a superb scholar. And therefore, if you want to be a superb scholar, you must be exactly like me. Yeah. And that's just homology. It's just nonsense. And of course, the great thing is our older students show the lie of that, right? Because people of Jamie and my generation, we were young scholars. We did degrees quite quickly. We came to university and we never left, right? Now, that is not the experience of 90% of the students that we're working with now. So we can either pretend that it is, or we can acknowledge and welcome and relish in the difference. Thanks for that, Jamie.
I'm not. Yeah, no, I agree. I find one of the most frustrating things I ever find is when there's like a paper mill based approach, right? Change something tiny and then do it all again with a new student, new project. It doesn't give the student much of an opportunity to grow and thrive, right? They're just doing more of the same. And I think the PhD actually should be quite creative no matter what discipline you do it in. It's an opportunity to be creative. And the more bold you are, so it's like all things with risk and reward, right? The bolder you are and the bigger you try to stretch, the bigger the risk, but the bigger the payout.
And Vita, darling, I know you and Jamie, and of course you two have never actually met each other, but you know, I always think he's speaking directly to you. So at this point of your life, you know, let's be bold, darling. Let's have that word, put that on a post-it note and have that over your office desk for the next week. Bold, my darling, bold. Let's do that. Brilliant. You're the best. Queen Gay, let's have a gorgeous chat with our gorgeous Gay. How are you going, darling?
Good, thank you. I just wanted to talk about what Jamie was saying when the supervisor is telling you what to do and how to do it, stifling your creativity and your unique contribution to the topic. My supervisor was like that, and he kept changing my topic every month. And I finally said to him, "This is my PhD." And guess what happened? He backed off completely, so much so that he would barely talk to me. He would barely read my stuff. He did not supervise me. He actually actively tried to stop me from being in the discipline, which means I'm no longer in the discipline because I can't, because he has blacklisted me. So, yes, you can stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
But it has consequences.
Yeah.
And in my case, it stopped my dream.
Oh, bloody hell. But I mean, that's that thing about, you know, my way or the highway, right? What I'm hoping, the only reason I'm still in this job, Gay, is so that at least somebody in a university says one can have standards without standardization, right? So a PhD is of standard. It must be quality. It must be quality assured. The best people in the world must examine it. But you can maintain those standards without a standardized approach to get there. And
my supervisor said to me, it's okay. It's not good, but it's okay. So guess what? All 3 examiners passed it with no changes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So you see, that supervisor is an idiot. And we need to call this stuff out a lot more, you see. So if like my joy, and of course I use this with the wonderful Kate and Eunice, I'm obsessed by this. It's like all those people that discounted Eunice and Kate, they were wrong. And we're talking like about probably 20 academics between the two of them, and they were wrong. And they need to sit in that wrongness and bloody have to think about that.
The problem with my supervisor, because I had to complain about him so many times, and the university said to me, yes, we are aware that this is how he treats his students, but he brings in so much money to the university, we're not going to do anything about it.
Yawn. As we know in the UK, Paul and Liam will remember this, in the old RAE, one of my favourite stories that I told about the University of Brighton is that the academics that supposedly had the esteem indicators and the funding were absolutely dreadful PhD supervisors, right? So in terms of RA, only Steve and I had all the bits, right? The rest of the university, the supposed high performers, when they actually came to do the metrics, they were appalling supervisors and students had left them. So of course the solution was, Paul, to game the system and to add those esteem researchers to already successful panels. To make the metrics work. So don't for one moment think that the really big names will inevitably be great supervisors. They're different skills. Straight to Ian, mate. Talk to me, Ian. Good morning, sir. Oh, sound, brother. Let's have a look.
Sound on there. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I hope everyone's well.
Brilliant, mate.
Good. It's just it's very sort of yeah, striking for me to listen to our conversations today and listen to you share your stories. And I also just wanted to share a little of my experience of having terrible experience with PhD supervision, but and critique and feedback, but also sort of coming out of it at the other end with positivity and success, despite the setbacks. And so my PhD started in 2016 at Stockholm University, and my supervisor was very different, very different from me. I was a creative, interdisciplinary sort of scholar, and used a lot of theory. I love it. Used a lot of theory for my conceptual basis, which it turned out that my supervisor didn't like theory, hated it, never engaged with it, very anti-theory actually. So now I'd have these semi sort of arguments with her about it over years, and she constantly put me down for using theory, as the conceptual basis for my analysis of my performances consistently for 6 years.
Oh boy.
Never did
boy.
she say, she never told me that I'd done well or that there was anything good about my research, my writing, my methodology. It was everything was exclusively from deficit point of view.
Oh.
And she slowly withdrew and withdrew and withdrew until she sort of stopped meeting me and then stopped giving me feedback. I think that she was in the end, she didn't know what I was writing about. She didn't know what I was on about. She didn't understand it, and she didn't take the time to. I directed her towards, some of the resources of the thinkers in cultural studies and performance studies, which she didn't engage with. My saving grace was that my co-supervisor, who is from another department in the university, the Department of Culture and Aesthetics. He was a theatre studies person and a performance studies person who just, had got everything and guided me through this whole PhD. So he ended up being my supervisor. The relationship, between the main supervisor and the co-supervisor was supposed to be 90% supervisor and 10% co-supervisor. The co-supervisor got paid. The payment that he got from my department reflected a 10% involvement, and he just did everything, saved my whole PhD. And I did it despite my main supervisor. Luckily, she didn't try to sort of destroy everything completely. So she sort of let me keep going because she knew that I was being supported elsewhere, and I was able to keep going to the end of my PhD, get my thesis written, and my defense was successful. I had an extremely constructive, team of I was as involved as I could be in putting together my committee in terms of people who had an affinity with my research with what I was doing, which was a very good move. But I've always struggled with feeling not good enough because of that experience, and then I've been writing, trying to get published, and it's even a bit worse at the moment because I'm now unemployed and I've just finished my postdoc, and I'm really sort of been floating a bit and just applying for jobs and sending CVs out into the abyss.
Yes.
I haven't got one interview from anything, even other postdocs that I've applied for. And so it's dispiriting. But before COVID, I converted, I was, through a conference that I attended, I was asked to submit a draft for a chapter contribution to a Routledge publication, the Routledge Companion to Gender and Borderlands. And this was because the editorial team had seen a conference paper that I'd written. So before COVID, I submitted my contribution, and then that all stopped for 3 years. It's just so it can be so the pace is just so slow. It can be so dispiriting. But yesterday, I finally got an email update from the editorial team. Oh, the draft is finally with Routledge. In the final stages, I love your writing. Your writing is beautiful. And I would even go so far as to call it majestic. Can you believe it?
I do.
This is from somebody on the editorial team. She's at University of Leicester in their English literature department.
Wonderful.
Got some edits to do, and so that's going to be published.
Brilliant.
Hopefully by the end of the year. And there are a few little things like that. There are a few little, sort of threads or pathways that are sort of emerging. I just sort of have learned, to jump on the positive feedback that you do get with something like that. Was so what a word to use. It's really knocked back.
You deserve that. No,
well, yes.
Yeah, you deserve, and Ian, darling one, we're so proud of you and we're so thrilled for you. And look, these are dreadful, dreadful times. Dreadful time to be in work, dreadful time to be out of work, right? And the only life lesson I've always carried forward is control what you can control, right?
Yes.
We can't control late capitalism. No one can control late capitalism. We can't control that dreadful supervisor. If I was the dean of that situation, there is some training work that's now coming in to manage those situations, but that's not good enough. But life has presented something remarkable as a reminder to you how fabulous you are, Ian.
Yeah, those are the things that matter.
They are, mate. They are. And that kindness that you've just shared with us there, that will change people's lives this week. That will transform a lot of people going through a challenging time. You're amazing.
I hope so.
Oh, darling, you're incredible. I wouldn't trade you for quids. And look, we'll quickly go to the wonderful Kate. I think we were going to have a whole Kate hour. Kate, darling one. Where's Kate? Oh, but don't worry, we'll have a Kate hour every Friday. But Kate, darling, do you want to speak to the rubbish supervision happens and sort of having to survive and make different choices? Do you want to just talk to that one, Queen Kate?
Oh, rubbish supervision. I had so many supervisors over, I don't know, 100 years. And the last two actually withdrew from my PhD after it had been submitted and after I got an A from one examiner and a D from another. They both pulled out. They would not let me resubmit, but it's all in the past now. I mean, I cried buckets. I had help from a psychologist from the university. I thought I was going nuts. But I do want to let all of you know that it's all in the past. It was all SH1T, but now I'm moving forward. And at lunchtime today, I'm having my first webinar on podcasting. I'm going to learn to podcast properly. And a few years ago, I wrote 8 books.
You did?
And they sort of sold on Amazon Kindle, but not very well. Most of them need to be updated now. So I'm going to do that, try and sell again, but talk about them on podcasting. So, and all that rubbish from the past is gone. It's gone from my life. But that's because of you, Tara, because I confided in you. And you told me to go to the dean and report what they were doing. And I did that. But the dean, I don't think the dean gave a crap, because one of my main supervisor wanted me to fudge my data. I said, no, I can't do that. I went to the ethics committee. I reported her, but she has got recently a Queen's Honour on the Queen's birthday list. I mean, it's so much rubbish, and she's held up in high regard. And I want to say to the whole world, she's a liar. She told so many lies about me and to me, but wanting me to fudge my data. The dean, I don't think the dean gave a crap.
Yeah, and see what I'm hoping, and of course we're in the last couple of minutes, Kate, so we're going to talk about you and those new books and podcasting next week for sure. But I think what the Australian Code of Research Conduct, and for our international colleagues, your rendering of the Vancouver Protocol is, when those things happen, we have to report them. We have to report them. That is part of what being a researcher is. So those practices in the past, they are stopping because they have to stop. Right? They have to stop. And fabrication of data, is Jamie still on the call? Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, Jamie, you and I have never had this conversation, so we'll just finish off our digital office hours this week with this, Jamie. I think the fabrication of data is the worst crime a researcher can enact. What's your feeling on that, Jamie?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the point, right? If you're going to fabricate data, what you devalue your own work. I mean, despite trying to pull the wool over other people's eyes, and it's the dirtiest of dirty deeds as far as I'm concerned.
But I always thought that if she was trying to get me to fudge my data, and I'm the same age as her, she's the same age as me, a very senior professor who has hundreds of students from our Asian countries who all pay a fortune to do their theses at the University of New South Wales. Let's not mince words here.
Yeah.
Then she would have got loads of her young students to fudge their data for her benefit, and they wouldn't argue with her. Young Asian students just don't. They just do as they're told.
But see, that's the homology, isn't it? I mean, Liam and Paul, that's the homology we're talking about. And we have to be ethical, decent humans, and we have to train our students to be ethical, decent humans. And, you know, the wonderful people on this call, you really capture the best of what universities can be. So, Kate, I want you to enjoy your podcasting, your podcast on podcasting, your webinar on podcasting. Who knew that was a sentence? And next week, I want to talk about getting those books in a new form for you. So let's have a conversation about that next week. Colleagues, I thank you so much for your time. For our colleagues that have joined us in the middle of the night, I love you desperately. Thank you for your participation today. And for our colleagues about to join us on Rat Club, I'll see you in about a minute. Take care, my dear friends. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Bye all. Have a good day.